Hello friends, I'm Rob, this is Digital Wastrel, and I'm just about to introduce my Van Saar gang, the Cult of Kronos.
Maybe I already had.
A little bit of backstory first. Stay with me, I promise I won't ramble on for too long. I've always liked time travel stories. As a British sci-fi fan of a certain age, I grew up with one of the most fantastical and influential time travel stories of my, if not any, generation. Of course, I'm talking about Marvel UK's Transformers comic, the Time Wars story that runs between issues 199 and 205. As a 90s kid, I also really loved the X-Men, especially time-travelling big gun enthusiast and shoulder pad salesman, Cable. Since then, I've always loved the idea of fighting against a dark and hellish future. It's a neat setup for some fun stories, I think. Fast forward to building my Van Saar gang. If you see my tactics video, you'll know that I view Van Saar as kind of one-dimensional and a little bit boring to play. They shoot you with plasma guns and that's about it. I've tried a few different gang builds to make them more interesting, but nothing really seemed to work for me. That is until I read the following piece of lore from House of Artifice. After centuries of rule over the STC and its attendant archaeotechs, Satyr Davos mysteriously vanishes. Speculation is rife among the archaeotechs, many believing he had finally perfected his archaeochronometrics, a device with the power to pierce the veil of time itself. Almost overnight, a group within the Van Saar, known as the Cult of Kronos, emerges, dedicated to finding Davos or replicating his work. This is pretty much all we get. 40k really loves throwing out these cool little interesting story hooks and then just leaving the rest to you. And this is no exception. A few different ideas suddenly came together in my NECROMUNDA obsessed brain. Book of the Outcast introduces a whole bunch of new psychic disciplines that any psychic can take. Any house gang can become Genestealer cult infected, and if they do, the leader can become psychic for a credits upgrade. One of these disciplines is chronomancy, the ability to control time. Genestealer cult infected gang can take an aberrant, a single aberrant. I knew what I had to do, use Count Saar's rules to make a time-travelling Van Saar gang with time travel powers. My leader would take chronomancy powers, and the aberrant would be modelled as some kind of tech automata, with the gang using all kinds of prohibited technology to advance their goals. I'd also include the Kitbashed squat bot that I made. Yeah, I figured that once you've started breaking the laws of time, breaking the law against thinking artificial intelligence isn't such a big deal. So, with all that sorted, here we go. Originally sent out to secure a rumoured archaeotech haul, the gang once known as Fusion Overdrive were inexperienced but confident. This would be a simple task for House Van Saar. Amongst the unearthed tech lurked something dark, however. An abominable intellect housed within a seemingly benign trinket decimated the gang. Possessing the gang's enemies, bodies piled up on both sides until only the leaders remained standing. After the smoke from the battle cleared, Azena and the intellect had both vanished. The survivors mounted a desperate search, but no trace was found. One full cycle later, she returned as if from nowhere, now possessing uncanny powers, a new purpose, and dark warnings if her mission should fail. Once brash and outgoing, Azena refuses to speak of where or when she vanished to. Game-wise, as mentioned before, I'm using Count Saar's rules for a Genestealer infected house gang. I'm buying her the Psyker upgrade, and I'm choosing the freeze time power from the chronomancy discipline. She'll also get the discipline specialization ability Flicker, which lets her take an extra action once per game. Her conversion was the most involved of the gang. I spliced together some Vansar legs with the torso and cloak of Agency the Cult Reductus Saboteur. There was a lot of cutting and filling gaps with random pouches. Her head is from the now sadly out of production Forge World Stormcast Eternals set. I know I'm not the first one to put a cloak on Vansar, and I definitely won't be the last one, because it's awesome. They look really good with cloaks. An old and once respected archaeotech of House Vansar, Barras was assigned to mentor Azena on her first command. He expected the success of a simple but prestigious mission to allow him to carve out his own quiet workshop and live out the rest of his days tinkering away on whatever took his fancy. Azena's newfound renegade ideas have quashed that dream, and although he's pledged his loyalty to the end, he absolutely will not stop grumbling about it. More comfortable with machinery than people, even by Vansar standards, Pan puts his research ahead of any other concern. He's happy to focus solely on the knowledge he can gain from the gang's new path, and not think too much about the ethical ramifications of their goals. Oa serves as tactical advisor and is the most pragmatic of the gang. She has a preference for old tech, wielding a comparatively archaic solid slug shotgun. Her personality is likewise crude and direct, leading her fellows to keep out of her way as much as possible. Oa is a simple conversion. Her head and the shotgun come from a Delac kit. Game-wise, I can run her with either a shotgun or a combat shotgun from the trading post, or just use her with a suppression laser from the house list, depending on how things go. The youngest of the gang, Toll's first combat experience saw her lose her nerve and flee her enemies. Although her companions were supportive, she still harbours a deep sense of shame and has since taken to grandstanding and risk-taking in an effort to wash away her guilt at running. Nipe's hearing augmentations have been acting strange ever since the encounter with the AI. Pan claims that they're working perfectly, but whenever things are too quiet, Nipe hears strange voices whispering to him. Maybe it's just his imagination. Proud and careful, Innick is something of a perfectionist. He'd rather not take a shot at all than risk having it miss. Still, when things get tough, he's quick to act. Many cycles ago, an arch-heretic, a cold trader smuggling party, and the hired muscle goons watching over the deal all decided to betray each other. The resulting battle killed everyone present, and the cargo they were fighting over lay undisturbed in the dark. Finding the ancient cargo, Pan and Barras managed to repair and reactivate the metallic being, who has taken to calling themselves Mondo. With no memory of their origins, Mondo has been essentially raised by the gang, and has recently discovered an affinity for riding grav cutters. I'm really happy with how this came out now that it's painted. I've got a whole video about the build if you want to see more. Garim is like everyone's younger brother. He's taken a shine to Mondo, and he spends a lot of time trying to teach the bot about the world and the ways of the Vansar. The two of them love racing each other on their grav cutters, and they bring some levity to an otherwise quite dour group. Whereas most in the group are fairly comfortable treating Mondo as a sentient being, the same cannot be said about Combat Automata VS-9000. Versus, for short, was liberated from a classified Vansar status facility, and has been acting as Azena's bodyguard unit ever since. The thing gives everyone the creeps, and several members of the gang swear they've seen its eyes following them around the room when it's meant to be offline for recharging. I started this conversion a while ago. It's one of the Necron assistant thingies from the Indomitus box. My original plan was to give it guns and run it as like an ordinary champion, but it was a lot bigger than I originally thought. I trimmed down the feet to make it less humanoid, which accidentally made it tilt forwards a little bit and gave it more of an insect type pose. I added the toes, which are the prongs from one of the Vansar shock staves. The head is a standard Vansar mask, and then the little hands and the back carapace bit are from the Adeptus Mechanicus Cataphron Destroyer's kit. Side note, that kit is top tier for bulking out your bits box. I also added a Saar ponytail thing to the base of the spine, which further tied it in visually to the rest of the gang and made it a little bit less humanoid still. So that's the gang as they stand now. My group's thinking about starting an Ash Wastes campaign soon, so I might take them out for that. If so, I'll probably expand them, give them some vehicles, and maybe kitbashing a house agent might be quite fun. Thanks for watching. Bye!